The time is 7 o'clock, and this is the meeting of the Urbana Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. John, could you call the roll?
Sure thing. Annie Adams.
Here.
Susan Jones. Tommy Griscom.
Here.
Chiushi Hong.
Yes.
Audrey Ishii.
Here.
Bruce Michelson.
Here.
Keenan Portis.
Here.
Sartek Prasad.
Here.
Dan Sapphire. Nancy Westcott.
Here.
John Zeman. Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Would anybody like to suggest changes to the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go on. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. I read them over. I thought they looked excellent. Thank you, John. Anyone else have comments or corrections?
Yeah, definitely our admin team really got on it and caught up, so I appreciate their hard work on that. Thanks.
Okay, we can go ahead and move for them to be approved together if no one has any comments individually. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. The minutes are approved. Public input and commissioner communications. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak? Okay. How about commissioners? Yes, Nancy.
Okay, I would like to say that PACE, CIL, it's a Center for Independent Living, has moved from Sunnycrest to Lincoln Square Mall. So we're right across the street. And there are a couple things I'd like to say about it. The last time the crosswalks were painted, there is a door on the southeast corner by the food co-op that goes south towards Illinois, and that crosswalk was skipped the last time. So it's pretty faded, and while the traffic there is very minimal, it's still something that I think that maybe the crosswalks around Lincoln Square should be kind of reconnoitered anyway. I don't know when they will come back up again. The other thing that, PACE serves many disabled, blind, low vision, and all disabilities, so that there may be more maybe or maybe not more wheelchairs in the area and so on. Probably most of the traffic would either be near the out the north door towards the bus area or out the southeast door where the ADA van picks up people. But nevertheless, there'll be another population of people who will be frequenting Lincoln Square. And the other thing is we're going, with the medical school, we're hoping to get a raised map of Lincoln Square itself, and we're hoping that it will be a prototype for people with low vision to develop a raised map where they can feel where things are within Lincoln Square. And if this prototype works, it might be something that BPAC could consider, various groups consider, for instance, a map of downtown Urbana, or maybe bus stops, or something like that. So at any rate, I just wanted to let you know that things are happening, and PACE is really happy to be located at Lincoln Square. It is, it's much more visible than Sunnycrest was, much more centralized, and a much nicer facility all in all.
When you said the southeast exit, which way is that? Then is it facing Vine?
It is facing Illinois. It's kind of where there was a restaurant, and it's kind of, I think it's between the food co-op and the restaurant is where that door is, and that is where the entrance to Pace is. The Pace is located above the food co-op, and so there's an elevator right inside that door.
So are you looking for painted crosswalks in the parking lot?
Yeah. Well, there already are. They're just, some of them are, one of them was, the last time they were done, that particular one was pretty faded. I'm assuming that the city put in that crosswalk. But I don't know. I was thinking that they did. I thought I saw another crosswalk.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to verify, but I really appreciate the comment, and I know we'll take it back and just take a look at all the surrounding crosswalks for freshening up. Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioner communications?
I have one. I know a lot of times, like, being on these commissions can be a little exhausting because there's lots of big goals and big thoughts and big ideas and not a lot of money and people to do the work. And that's just sort of the nature of government, and I understand that. But one thought I had today was, what if BPAC every year chose a crosswalk that they would like to have happen, like a new crosswalk that we would like put in, and then every year we all vote on it, we agree on it, and we make that our goal for the year to make sure that that crosswalk happens. So that's just one thought. It's nothing we have to agree upon or talk about right now, but I've just been thinking of all the years I've been on BPAC, and if I had just pursued that goal of one crosswalk every year, we would have, and by, it might even be an existing crosswalk, let's just make it enhanced. Let's add a pop-up stop sign like in front of the school, things like that. So just like if I had like kind of pursued that goal, we would have many more safe crossings for people. So that's just one thought I had.
Thank you. Kind of an adopt a crosswalk, it sounds like.
We can cut ribbons. It'll bring visibility to BPAC, the city of Urbana. It's going to be great.
And I'd just like to mention, when people want to make this communication, if you want to, you can either be impromptu or you could plan it ahead of time and even have a visual, and that would be fine. The only thing is to be mindful of time, but I don't think so far that's going to be a problem. Okay. Any other communication then? Okay, thank you. Unfinished business. This agenda is actually quite similar to last month's agenda, except that we're hoping to maybe finish some of the business. So number 1, marked walking trail through downtown Urbana with Annie Adams.
I can give an update on that project. Do you want? It's okay if I give it here? I have no visuals, or is it easier if it's in front?
Yeah,
okay.
That's fine.
So I gave a presentation of the, since we've last met. Let me just review what I did. Since we've last met, I have, there is now a QR code. There is, which I think I already showed you, there is a map. I've added more historical markers to the map. I presented the Sage Walking Trail to the Historical Preservation Commission. I received feedback from them with ideas and thoughts. The main concern was Main Street, there's a lot of fancy houses on Main Street. And just for review, the Sage Walking Trail the purple loop would go through downtown, and it would be a 2-mile walking trail, and it would be only on sidewalks, and it would be the same stripe machine that you use to paint yellow stripes in the middle of the road, but this one would be purple. And it's a loop, and it's 2 miles. They were very excited about it. They're very interested in it. The one concern was, why did I take the trail through the, in front of the co-op, through the parking lot, and then head down Oregon? And my response was that I was trying to create connectivity from the farmers market to our downtown area. So I was trying to kind of create a space where you would walk through these different areas and create connectivity. And then the other question was, what about Main Street with all the beautiful houses on it? And I said, that would be great. I really had a hard time figuring out how to connect the path there. That infrastructure for pedestrians isn't really great. Cars go very, very fast and drive recklessly on Main Street in that area. Citizens on that block really want that street fixed. In addition, there's that, it's like, is it a Baptist church? But there's that beautiful, like stucco orange building, sort of orange building. You can't kind of miss it, kind of near Founders Park. And Founders Park is where the city of Urbana started. But those folks really would love to have a crosswalk. I mean, I've seen people like trying to hustle crews of little kids across that very large street that's McCullough and Main Street. And it's very dangerous. And that church would really like that street fixed. And again, I have no idea why nothing has ever happened on any of these initiatives. I don't know if it's just there's not been an organization. But it's my understanding the church has brought it up multiple times. But that's what I had to tell them, as I said, it's not safe. It's not a safe walking space. And also, if someone is using enhanced mobility, those are not ADA accessible streets or sidewalks. So I just, and then the response was, but isn't the point of this to get us more ADA accessible spaces? And I said, well, yes and no. So that was pretty much the biggest feedback, were those different thoughts. And then another person had an idea of maybe creating a figure 8. So instead of just a big loop, and so you'd have a figure 8. And I said, well, that's very interesting. And once again, I just said, if people have ideas or thoughts, please feel free to email me. Let me know. I am open to ideas and thoughts. And my next goal is to I need to reach out to the Arts Commission and Economic Development. And just sort of, my whole concept at this point is just to let people know it exists, and this is what we're interested in. The proposal that I would like to bring this to City Council with is, I think, too tight. It's kind of freaking people out a little. So I think I need to come up with a more loosey-goosey proposal. And then I will bring it back to BPAC and with my loosey-goosey proposal, which I think is going to be more like, how would you feel about paint temporarily on a street that makes a path? Something like that. But that was the other thing. Because people are thinking that they're going to be able to like approve, like they're thinking this is like set in stone. And I'm like, no, I just sort of need approval to kind of keep moving it forward. And if we just keep arguing over the details, it will never move forward.
I put it on my ride with GPS and walked it, and I didn't want to do the whole thing because I was on my way to get my bike, but it like did the cool thing of giving you directions and when I took a shortcut and landed back on it, it just kept, like, it picked up right there.
Did it give you audio directions?
On my phone, yeah.
But is that the Google map?
No, it was my ride with GPS map.
Ah. Because that was one of my concerns. I was really hoping the Google map would have audio directions for people with vision impairment, and I was sad when it was just kind of me just drawing a line, and I'm like, well, that's never going to work. Cool. So then
we can talk about that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That was Ride with GPS?
Yeah, it's hard to look at your phone while biking. So, anyway, yeah,
I walk with GPS, that would work too.
It works.
That'd be great.
It doesn't care. No, because, well, you can go on, when you're on Google Maps using it, and it'll either say follow roads or draw straight lines. So I just set it to draw straight lines. And I don't know, like, I've been a actual contributing member since like 2010, so I don't know how many features, but, I mean, anybody can export it to their phone. You know, I can share it, and I'm pretty sure anybody could use it. I hope so, I hope so.
Any other questions, comments? I was wondering if it could like feature augmented reality, so you could hold up your phone and see what this once looked like, or.
Yeah, I've been laughing because that's like the Pikachu, was it the Pikachu where people run around and try to grab all the monsters?
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, once it becomes a route, it will be a monster route. But yeah, definitely, that's definitely a possibility to hold things up and see things. But, you know, as someone who works for the city wisely told me, he said, we just kind of got to get through the first phase. It's just paint, Danny. It can be changed. I was like, okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It sounds like it's continuing to progress, which is pretty exciting. The next item is the Safe Streets for All. I did send out to everyone the presentations and also the extremely detailed minutes that Marcus made of our dialogue on Safe Streets for All and the residential speed limits topic. So I'm not going to go over that right now, although I have them there if there's some kind of question comes up. We made a subcommittee to meet on the topic of the Safe Streets for All possible grant ideas, and we managed to meet once. It was difficult to find the time in the ever-changing weather, trying to avoid really nice days where we could work and play outside. But we have done a little research and determined that CCRPC agrees that we can apply for actually either the implementation or the planning and demonstration grant. However, in reviewing the awarding of implementation grants, I would say there's just no chance that we or the city of Urbana would get one, because they are really going for maximum impact in places that have very high fatality and injury rates. They want to see a lot of lives saved with this, and our numbers just would not come close to justifying very much, I'm afraid. So that leaves us with something we'd really like to, well, I'm not afraid, I'm glad, but that leaves us with the planning and implementation, which that's kind of a totally converse situation where they're begging people to take that money. They can't get enough applicants for the money that they have. In fact, they argued for having it the split, which was 40% planning and demonstration and 60% implementation. They got that split changed to 30-70. And not only that, they made it retroactive to the previous 3 years too. So they reduced their overage. I mean, they had like 600 million to give out, and decreasing people applying for it. So that decreased their overage to around 450 now, and would have been 300, but 150's rolled over from previous years. So it's still exceedingly possible to get one of those grants. They said every eligible applicant has received something at least.
Yeah, and so the solution we came up with was, we were going to present to BPAC sort of some ideas, like a kit. Essentially, we were going to propose that the city of Urbana would apply for like a kit. So like an idea for mini traffic diversions, such as like large planters. And then the other one would be like a WUNERF, which is a living plaza or a street for living. There's one there's one in Urbana right now. It's on the engineering campus. And then what were the other?
Oh, yeah, I have some notes. So we also had raised intersections or raised crosswalks, protected bike lanes, so including like bollards, for example, use of public art, so painting a crosswalk or painting portions of an intersection, which can help to slow down traffic. We can also demo speed limit reduction, which is another kind of big item that we're talking about next. And then also we can do data collection as well. So it's all part of the demonstration projects.
And the demonstration projects do require some kind of evidence of effect, what the result was. A little bit of before and after. Before can always be difficult because you may not have known until you're getting it. But some kind of measure of effectiveness in order for other localities to benefit. And I'm sure John knows about this from the demo grant that he was awarded through CCRPC.
So I had one clarification question. So there's the demonstration side, and then there's the planning side. And on the planning side, we're attempting to create some sort of document which qualifies as an action plan. So the idea was floated that we could make an appendix to the RPC vision plan. I don't remember the exact name of it.
It's a safety plan.
Yeah. But then I believe an alternative was floated recently via email that maybe we need to make our own vision plan.
Well, right at the moment, RPC hasn't decided how exactly they're going to what the framework is going to be for their increased data collection and improvement of the plan. So they did not jump at the idea. I did float that to Rita at RPC, and they didn't jump at the idea of being an appendix to their plan, but they neither did they agree that they were planning to do the kind of work we need, which is splitting out data by municipality so that we can look at a safe systems approach for Urbana. So it sounds like we would potentially want to make a Vision Zero action plan for Urbana, but reference the RPC document as much as possible. And if in the future it becomes clear that we could make it an appendix, that would be great. I mean, it may be that RPC does a lot of this work. It doesn't have to be done locally by city staff. They've done a lot of work for Urbana and excellent work, and they could do this work as well. So we would just see where that goes, right?
I'd also say, like, speaking of work, I think one of the reasons the demonstration grants are having a hard time giving the money away is because a lot of cities have put exactly $0 and 0 cents into pedestrian and bike and transit. Having someone on their staff full-time who is focused on that. A lot of cities have a lot of staff focused on getting the cars around, but not on these other things that the demonstration grants really work on and focus on. And so an exciting part of the grants is you can apply to get money to hire people to implement the demonstration grants or implement these different items. So I thought that was very exciting because so many grants do not allow you to hire staff. It's pretty exciting that these grants will allow cities to hire people to manage these different things.
I don't know if it's hire or pay. Maybe John has more knowledge about it. Yeah, pay, I'm pretty sure, yes. That's definitely possible, but whether you can actually hire, I don't know about that. But do you know more, John?
I mean, I think typically like reimbursing or paying for somebody's salary or part of somebody's salary is something you can do with some of these grants. Could I interject and just add some things? Great discussion.
Please, yes.
And I really like the idea of whether it would be an appendix or whatever. I mean, for sure, whatever, if we were to go forward with this grant and get this, we would partner with the regional area safety plan, right? It need to be in concert with it. I was reading over the safety plan this afternoon, and I know one of my favorite parts about it are these tables of objectives and strategies that they have where, and I don't know, I think one thing that could be really beneficial is going on the idea of making this based on Urbana data, Urbana, what we have about the city specifically. How do we translate these strategies to specific actions within the city of Urbana? talking like specific intersections, crosswalks, things like that. I think that would be a very powerful step, and that could be implemented directly into, say, capital improvements and things like that. I could see that being a beneficial thing as well. And what I'm learning about with the demonstration grant, so you hate to turn down money. This money definitely comes with some strings attached. So it's federal dollars, and what the example I'm coming through is the North Lincoln Avenue from Washer to Killarney. We're looking at that road diet demonstration. Already have a consultant on board to do the design of the eventual improvements. But then, so the grant, this $200,000, would really just be going towards the payment to the contractors to say, like, bid it out, hire a contractor to black out or cover over or remove the pavement markings, put down temporary pavement markings for the road diet, maybe adjust some traffic signals so the heads are in the right spot, let it run for a while, maintain the things as it goes, then put it all back the way it was. To do that, I have to go through the federal environmental review process, which is not an easy thing to do, or it's not a cheap thing to do, I should say. It works out because I'm already got a consultant on board to do that kind of process anyway for the larger project. But if I was just doing this as a standalone, I just want to do a road diet demo, I'd have to hire a consultant to go through and do the federal environmental review process, it was really frustrating. We had a conversation with FHWA, a couple conversations about it with them, where I was like, we're just changing pavement marking, right? We're not digging up, we're not acquiring right away, we're not doing these typical things that would trigger, the important process of making sure you're not impacting biological or cultural resources. But anyway, so there's a challenge that's posed with these demonstration grants that it kind of has to be a big thing to be worth going for, because we're having to invest in professional services to go with it. So the action plan may be where the good bang for the buck is, just from my initial take on this.
Yeah, I have been getting a little bit suspicious because I've only heard from one side how it's rah, rah, wonderful, wonderful, and yet they can't give away the money. So I've started wondering if there isn't a downside to that, and I figured it was something associated with that. I mean, if your whole $200,000 goes for, meeting the compliance with these federal standards that you otherwise wouldn't have to worry about, then it's
Right.
hardly a win-win.
Yeah, no, and that's the challenge, is like, because after the conversation with FHWA, I was having that pause. I was like, no, wait, do we want to accept this? Do we want to think about this for a minute? So anyway.
That's interesting, and it'd be interesting to hear from other communities, because I just feel that, year after year, they can't give it away. It's sounding a little bit suspicious. But that's where, in our last meeting, one person who just had very little experience, she's obviously very fresh out of school and third time Vision Zero, hire for Baltimore, just went out and asked for whatever she thought was great. And that was things like, and some of the things I mentioned in this draft letter, that was things like Complete Streets ambassadors to explain it to the under-resourced communities, what is a complete street and how you use it. Ciclovias, which is closing off streets and having this can't be permanent, it's events or temporary things, but this is all falling under demonstration as opposed to planning. And she got $1 million the first year and $10 million the second year that she applied, which is pretty, and it was for a lot of these things. In fact, she's not even applying for an implementation grant. She's going to go for another planning grant and demo grant because she's just finding them so great. So yeah, unless you're getting a lot of money to make it worth jumping through those hoops, and of course, if you're getting a lot of money, you also have to set aside 20% in salary for match for in-kind. It seems like that could be difficult, whereas the planning, if it's something that we already know we need to have and just haven't had the ability to fund it, and also these other ideas, which temporary art installations where hopefully we wouldn't have federal environmental, maybe we would.
I'm just curious, yeah, what's this federal environmental stuff about? I've never heard of this before.
NEPA is the acronym, and so generally speaking, NEPA will take at least a year to get through. If you're like, you have a professional hired who knows what they're doing to get on it and get through it. And that's if you're in the bucket of, this is really basic, you're not like expanding a road, building a new road, you're not doing something really impactful. Still, it's like a year process.
But like, who are they and what are they and what's their purpose?
So it's the coming together of like various federal and state agencies. It could be Fish and Wildlife, Corps of Engineers, Department of Natural Resources, Historic Preservation Agency. Like, these are all the folks that you have to say like, yeah, you're okay. You're not making them. You're not, There's not a endangered bat that you're going to harm. There's not a historically significant, piece of property along there, or something that you're going to impact.
But why would changing paint on the ground?
It doesn't make common sense.
That's what I was just.
It doesn't make common sense. I think if I'm to speculate here, I think what happened is that a program, this SS4A program, the demonstration grants, it's this good idea that the FHWA doesn't have like a hole for that peg to fit in. So they're like, I have to do the environmental. It's like they don't know how to deal with it. Yeah.
So,
Okay, there we go. So do we know of any like categories of demo projects that we're fairly confident would not need to go through that process?
I don't know, because I would have thought this was one.
Yeah, okay. What about like,
Because
say,
generally speaking, when you're not touching dirt, like
Uh-huh.
when you're not digging, that's usually like the low threshold.
so if we have, if we're adding bollards to already existing bike lanes, for example?
I would assume it'd be a similar impact.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well,
planters
No, that's
to a
okay.
But if
street.
it was a historical street, it might change the
But
ambiance.
I would hope not. I would hope not. And I mean, these would be the kind of questions it'd be good to explore and to understand, because I mean, in a way too, like to understand what are we getting ourselves into before we get the grant and you're like, oh, we got to do that.
certainly we can do data collection.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's that.
Well, and I know RPC's experience with their portion will be, informative as well. As I know they're talking about potentially, buying some ped counters for the region, putting those in as part of their data collection. So I think there'd be some things we can learn from their experience as well. But yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I kind of understood it better. I was so I was so surprised by that conclusion from them that I was just like,
Well, yeah, that answers a sort of lurking concern I've had, that there must be some reason why there's money left over. Yeah, that's
So
very
I wonder,
interesting.
can we factor that into the application? So you simply try to predict the cost of the environmental review and then?
I would honestly, I would say that is probably not the best money to use for demonstration projects.
Yeah.
That would be my take. Is like, I mean, if we're talking about like lighter, cheaper, faster stuff, it's probably better not to try to use federal dollars for that. But maybe the planning is a better use of the federal dollars. Yeah.
And yet that was what they were going for, was lighter, cheaper.
Well, they're
faster.
scaring me off, and maybe this is just there's something about this project I don't understand but yeah, that's just what I'm taking away from it. So definitely not an official understanding of the whole big picture, but just one data point. So.
And I wonder, Audrey, if you wouldn't be able to just, I know you've been in contact with the folks who are desperately trying to get rid of this money. I wonder if you couldn't reach out to them and just say, we've run into this problem, because it's one of those things where the federal government might not even know that this is tripping people up. And like John was saying, they're trying to, I know what everyone's trying to cross, like no one wants to like be in a situation where, well, this came by us and we just slid it on, everyone feels like they have to do something to cover their accountability is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, questions are being accepted only through tomorrow, I believe,
Yeah,
technical questions.
but
And-
it's just one of those things where I just have this feeling they don't know it's happening.
Yeah, well, they haven't made it evident in their webinars and information so far, so maybe they don't know. I don't know. However, it sounds like something that will be discussed at various conferences and so on with colleagues and peers, for sure. The word is bound to get around.
Yeah.
Or has been around, and we haven't heard it yet, but,
So then in terms of next steps, so are we going to meet again? Is that the idea? Or
it does sound like
we need
if
to
you
go
want to
back the
think
drawing
about
board?
questions to ask, think fast, because the last day for questions is
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Okay.
Definitely, it's something to really keep in mind. It sounds like you'd want to double at least the amount asked for a simple demonstration, and as well as the time. I mean, it definitely sounds very problematic. And then there's the question of if it's worth the staff time, because they have to do a 20% match. And, as John said, if it's not meeting the goals, we'll have to consider it. But definitely, I think one thing that, and I forwarded actually just to this group, but I could forward to everyone, was a reminder of the presentation Bill Brown gave about 2 years ago, I think, or a year and a half ago, of traffic calming kits, ideas that to have a toolkit for a city to pull out. I just wasn't sure that would pass as a demo project, because that's like actually a possession of the city thereafter, is to have this. And the kit doesn't mean just physical things. It also means, policies and the readiness to apply them, basically, when a procedure for neighborhoods to go through when they're asking for a calming of a street. I was wondering if something like that would pass, for example, as a.
Yeah, to me, that's interesting, because it's a kit. You're not telling the federal government, we're specifically going to use this kit on this street. You're just saying, we're going to buy a bunch of big planters, and or if people in a neighborhood, say McCullen, Main Street, wanted to create traffic calm there, we wouldn't say that's the street we're doing it on. We would say, we'd like to do some bump outs with paint,
That probably violates the before and after that they're asking for. They're asking for a specific result. So if we just got something that didn't have a specific result, I don't think that would qualify.
So the kit's not.
If we, by the way, end up with a kit because we put out temporary items, then we still own those items, right?
Yeah, presumably.
Yeah.
Well,
And
also,
if part of planning was to plan a traffic calming,
I I hear talks about a policy and procedure. That sounds like planning to me, not knowing the ins and outs of their definitions exactly, but that could be very beneficial as well. Just if anybody's emailed me, I'm very slow on catching up on emails. I was just realizing I've got a invitation to meet with RPC later this week to discuss what are we going to do with SS4A this year. As my understanding is, we're not going to do the big application for implementation like we did last time. So it's kind of rethinking what the package might be for the community, for the region.
Sounds like we need to go big. They have the money, let's just go big.
There you go.
for a planning and, for a planning and demonstration.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, right now it's up in the air. You don't know if implementation might be
Right,
on the table
right.
or.
But I definitely hear what you said earlier, Audrey, about concerns that we're not bad enough, essentially, to get their attention for the implementation grants. Yeah. And there's just also where like hardly any awarded in the middle of the country. There's all on the coasts too, where the numbers were, where you get the population, you have the numbers. So, yep.
Okay, we're segueing into residential street speed limits with the Safe Streets for All, because they can be very related, since speed management studies and plans can be specifically funded under Safe Streets for All grants. It sounds like the demonstration grant is very interesting, and I also think it's worth getting excited about and coming up with some concrete ideas for future funding possibilities. I mean, this is the thing, we keep getting caught with a deadline, with a short deadline, and we haven't got something ready. So I think, and I know Annie's made many presentations, we need to pull those out, put them together into a proposal kit of some kind that's ready to pull into action when the funding is there to apply for. You know, whether or not Safe Streets for All is the right thing for a demonstration grant. So I sent this out on rather short notice today, just a very rough draft. It needs a lot of wordsmithing. And I also think we might be informed by what John finds out in his meeting with CCRPC. You said this week? Later this week? Yeah. But I'm going to pass it out anyway to give people, so you don't have to print it at home. For me, I have to work with print. Okay, so this does have part on the demonstration topic, and any of it is subject to change based on what we find out from basically what we've, so I'm trying to be general enough that it's still applicable. We sent a resolution, and I have sent that to you guys. Actually, I'll go sit down so I can pull it up and you can see it. Last May, we sent a resolution to City Council. Bill Brown did, forwarded it upon the BPAC's direction to City Council, asking that they apply for that they investigate applying for a Safe Streets for All grant. And there was very little time by the time we'd heard about it, and there really wasn't staff time to address it in that short time frame. But we were looking forward to this year. So basically, I thought rather than redo all this work, what if we just re-forward the same resolution and indicate our continued support of this request that the city investigate the feasibility of a Safe Streets for All grant. And so I started what would be a simple transmittal letter, and then I just felt an urge to put all the information I knew into it. So this is, in many cases, you know, I don't even know if people ever open the attachments. So we were just indicating that, and the first paragraph is something that, of course, city staff is already very well aware of. And also I will mention that the mayor, Marlon, serves on the policy committee of CUATS and is very involved with RPC, so she's very on top of this. Whether the city council has time to stay on top of this topic is less certain. It would be great to have a member of city council sitting here on this commission, but so far I don't think we have any volunteers. So we just are forwarding this and suggesting that the two items that are missing for us to be fully recognized as a Vision Zero city, we already do have the required resolution signed by the mayor declaring a stated goal of 0 fatalities by 2030. And What we're basically missing is, and I can't remember, there were a couple others that we also have. So we're part way on our way, but what we're missing is ever having an actual task force that involves anyone other than ourselves. We are considering ourselves a task force, but you do have to show some kind of representation from these other departments, even if it was just a meeting or two to introduce the topics and get some feedback, some input. And of course that takes work to put that meeting together. And the other is to complete an action plan. And John's idea was, he was pointing out something really good. A lot of the work is already done. All we have to do is say, how does this apply to Urbana? It doesn't have to be a huge big deal to complete an action plan for Urbana. For that, we need Urbana-specific statistics. RPC did say that they were going to look at longer time periods probably in the future, partly because of the pandemic, maybe 10-year time periods instead of just 5, which I've had a real problem with 5-year time periods because it's such a moving baseline. You know, we lose sight of how bad we are compared to 2007 if we're only looking at the last 5 years. They are going to start looking at 10 years for some things, but they have not yet committed to separating municipalities. But perhaps that'll change. I mean, they do have quite a bit of funding. So we, in any case, I think that we could complete a Vision Zero action plan. Now, of course, there would need to be staff time, and I don't know. Which do you think that would be engineering, John, or would that be to be determined?
Oh, yeah, for city staff, it'd be engineering involved in this.
Okay. And I know last time the lack of staff was a big obstacle.
Yeah, and we were running up against the timeline. Now, I got an email today, an updated NOFO actually for SS4A. August 29th, there's a third deadline for planning and demonstration grants. So that's our target that we can use for this. Gives us a decent amount of time from today. Also, you actually have until April 24th for technical questions. They updated that.
Oh,
deadline.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Sorry, I just now saw that in the email. But yeah, so we actually have just a little more than a week on that.
Great. I know that the August 29th, they did mention it's going to be what's left over, but if past experience is any guide, there should be some left over.
Yeah, because the deadline before that is May 16th,
Yeah.
a month from today. Yeah.
Okay. And so the reasoning as to why we need an action plan is described here. And then I segue immediately to the emphasis on speed, which we discussed at our last meeting. That we went through some presentations on the importance of speed and the absolutely amazing fact that now the U.S. Department of Transportation is emphasizing the safe systems approach, where speed management is the key element. So there is a big push on the part of several organizations to go for lowering residential speed limits actually to 20 miles per hour in the case of most national organizations. Even the state of Illinois currently has a bill, and the assignments, the group is called Assignments. I'm not quite sure what that is, but there are several sponsors, and the group, it was introduced in February of 23. And the group, it's been picking up sponsors, and the group was meeting today, and I haven't got the outcome of that meeting. But they're actually asking for a default speed limit of 20 miles per hour. So one alternative we did talk about was just encouraging the city council to send a letter of support for that bill, depending on where that goes. And I haven't heard yet, so we could discuss that at a future meeting. But in looking, and we talked last time about all the communities nearby who have reduced their residential speed limit to 25 miles per hour. I was taking another look for any other communities in Illinois when I came across Crystal Lake, which was just amazing in that it's the same size as Urbana in population, a slightly lower budget, and a much larger land area. And yet they did the work, and then I saw their resolution to reduce their residential speed limit to 25 miles per hour, and their resolution was such a model that I was kind of like, just throw out mine, the one I'd started, because it was just, it was very complete and provided all the arguments right within it, and then the results of their study and the reasoning behind having a citywide except for, with the exception specifically noted. Now, what they did is they noted they put down the speed limit for every single street in the city, and it ran to about 17 pages, despite being a city of only 40,000. I don't know if ours would run that long if we were to do that. They ran it through legal. This is all in their ordinance. They ran it through legal, and they determined that this was going to be better going forward, that they would just have this one place suits all for determining, any changes. Because they said it's difficult to research what the speed, when questions come up about the speed limit, whether it was properly voted on in an ordinance established. So they felt it was a good way to go forward. So it's such a model that I think that would perhaps be the way we would go. But they did engage in some work, and that work would take staff time. They did engage quite a bit of work to name every street and to establish that 25 miles per hour was a best speed rate for the city, as well as determining the arterials where there's exceptions to that.
And at this point, I thought we had agreed that we were going to wait for the state of Illinois to come through and set 20 miles per hour, so we wouldn't have to sign everything. Was that not what our thought process was?
I didn't gather that we decided that's what we're actually doing. I didn't have that down as an action item. Maybe I need to go back and look at Marcus' notes, because it actually, at the last meeting, I wasn't even aware that bill was still alive. I just found out when I was looking for that.
I wonder if it would be easier to note the streets that are not included. It seems like there would be many fewer arterial or main streets to list those in the ordinance.
They reasoned that it was better to list every single street and its speed, every single street.
Well, in the way our traffic code is currently written, of course, it's a city code. This would be an ordinance that's rewriting city code. Is that if you have an exception to the statutory speed limit, you have to list that specifically as like, what is the exception to the statutory speed limit of 30 miles per hour? So administratively, it would definitely be easier if the state changed.
Yeah, because
that would be easier.
That will also economically, because right now the way the way people understand the law is if you drop your speed limit to 20 miles per hour, you have to create a bunch of signs and hang them everywhere. Versus if we are legally allowed, if the state of Illinois legally allows us to drop the speed limit to 20 miles per hour on residential streets, you don't have to sign everything. You can just say, you would be actually taking down signs, and you would be saying, residential streets are now 20 miles per hour, and and what is not a residential street is boopity boopity boop, and then that's it.
Right, and I agree. So I was looking over the part of the state statutes that talks about setting your own local speed limit, and if, like they say, yeah, you can do like the 25 mile per hour for residence areas, but then you have to sign. It's effective. It's effective if the city passes it and it's signed. Yeah, that's how it's like worded. It's like this is enforceable if it's signed. So that'd be a challenge for us to deal with there.
I also think we'd have more wind at our back if it's passed at the state level.
Sure.
Because it's 20 mile per hour is going to be shocking for people.
Do you think it's going to pass? I mean,
Yeah, I
right
think
now
it's going to pass. I do think it's going to pass.
I don't think it's wise to wait on that.
I do think it's going to pass, though.
Oh, yes, I think it's going to pass someday, for sure. I agree, but not today.
Not today.
Not next year, not the year after.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I would say that. I do think it's going to pass sooner rather than later. People are really clamoring for this, especially in the largest city in the state. So
Is it possible to kind of start the process of doing our own updates to our code, and then if it happens to pass, then we don't need to continue? We want. Well, when would it be passing this year if it were to pass? Do we have any
Yeah,
idea?
I also heard a rumor that they were going to limit it to cities over 3 million.
Oh,
Not to just to bring up
A pretty
Annie's
specific
sure, a lot of
point.
those.
Just to remind you, the states that already have 20 miles per hour, there's only 4. I don't know which 4 they are. And there's, urban is generally including residential. And 19 states have 25, and Illinois is in the higher range here at 30 and then 35 plus.
I mean, I think the wisest way that we could spend our energy is introducing the concept of 20-mile-per-hour residential streets, the same way that the city of Minneapolis is doing that with signs and other items. I bet that's something we could apply for a grant for.
Yes, slow streets awareness is definitely
You could,
something
yeah,
that would be.
yard
as
signs.
would speed studies, speed management
we
plans
wouldn't
and
need
studies are
NEPA.
also definitely something we can apply for.
But it's kind of the concept of if you're introducing a new idea to people and you're trying to get people to understand something that they don't frankly want to understand, is slowly introducing the idea and slowly getting the idea normalized. I mean, I was pretty freaked out when I saw 20 miles per hour, but now I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And so at first I was like 25 seemed insane to me, and then 20, when I first started hearing 20 is the new speed limit, I was like, really? So
Maybe too much hand-holding isn't good. I searched in vain for strong protests against any of these cities that have changed to 25. It seems like the vast majority of people approve. Do you know if signing has been a big problem in St. Joseph? I know Savoy talked about it costing maybe, they could either do it in-house over time, or it was going to cost like $4,000 or something to do the signage in Savoy.
No, I did reach out to I was reaching out to Savoy. I just didn't get a chance to connect with them before today's meeting. But no, I haven't gotten any of that. Thanks.
And that also you could apply for a grant for, because there's no environmental impact by changing a sign. So if we just apply for $100,000 in re-signing residential streets to 20 miles per hour.
Well, that would be implementation unless we're going to do before and after studies.
Well, and the trick is, the catch there is that we don't sign most of our residential streets at all. So we'd have to have signs put everywhere.
And the other thing I thought when we first started discussing this was it was about actual police being able to enforce it.
Well, that's to me a catch as well, where with our current police staffing, the enforcement side of speed control is not able to be what it has been in the past, in Urbana, I would say, just because they're not able to, with their priorities that they've got, to dedicate the resources to speed control.
Yeah, and I'm honestly less concerned about police officers enforcing speed control, because I find people, if a police officer is there, they'll drive a certain speed limit, and if there's not a police officer there, they'll do as they wish. But that said, it was my understanding that just basically the tickets held no weight if we didn't sign everything. That was the only reason to sign everything, was so that if you gave someone a ticket, they would actually have to pay the ticket.
Well, I think we definitely are not interested in increasing the police officer workload, nor in increasing the number of people getting tickets at all. I mean, that is very critical to this. And there have been studies that have shown, even without enforcement, even without publicity, just putting the signs out, and this is contrary to earlier research from the early 90s. That I think there was a paper done that's been quoted ad infinitum about how people will, continue to go their way regardless of the speed limit. Actually, they've seen recently in Boston and Seattle, at least, and there's academic papers about this, where they did the study that people fell more in line. In Boston, it didn't really change the average speed limit very much, but if you look at this graph, the person who's a deviant, who's going at 35 miles an hour, those people started to fall in line. That's what's interesting, is people just began to converge at actually not a speed that was much different than what it was before, but they got rid of a lot of the deviation, which is wonderful for traffic safety. And that was without increased enforcement, which I would consider it a failure if we had to write more tickets, for sure. That's not what we want to see. And so we want to see demonstration projects about how you naturally alter people's perception of the right speed to go on a street. We don't want this to be something that has to be enforced.
Yeah, and as we discussed last time, as I believe they did the math that people driving recklessly takes up how many police officers a year, time?
I think it was 3.
A ridiculous amount of time and money for the city to pay because people are refusing to obey the law.
Well, that was actually attending to crashes, I think, was the 3 officers. I'm not sure how many are involved in other traffic issues. And also, the safety was also increased, if that's a question. But anyway, so what the question before us is whether to remind the city that there's the Safe Streets for All grant, or do we put it on hold for the next meeting until John has more information? And also the residential speed limit, it is something that I just folded in here because I feel the grant would best go towards that goal. So I guess I would accept a motion to re-forward the Safe Streets for All resolution of last year with comments to the effect that we still support it, perhaps modified as necessary by incoming information. Do you, someone has to move. Okay. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, discussion?
Would we suggest to them the August 29th deadline for submission of a proposal?
I wonder if that's necessary. I think it would be obvious that that's the one they would be going for. It would require a miracle to go for May 16th. But we could mention it for sure, that August 29th. And we did mention it in our earlier resolution, so we should mention, yeah, an update. The earlier resolution that we're simply re-forwarding, and I don't really want to write a new one, did mention what the deadline was.
But that was for last year.
Right, so we should update with a
Right, okay.
mention of the
Yeah.
August 29th, yes. Other discussion? Okay, I guess we'll have a vote. Everyone in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And reports.
So decided not to take any action on this speed limit at this time, just to confirm.
The speed limit resolution, no action at this time.
All right.
Yeah, because more work needs to be done. Yeah, but it is mentioned as a potential for the SS4A grant.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can give some updates. Of course, if you want to move back to your spot, Audrey.
Wait, are you going to show something?
I could. I don't need to
Yeah,
necessarily.
that would be great.
Okay. we're actually doing pretty good on time here. It's just a little after 8 o'clock. So a couple ideas I had was capital some things I've been emailing the group about. Capital improvement plan, the South Lincoln Avenue corridor study, maybe the University Avenue, IDOT's project, University Avenue from Maple to Route 130. If there's any other questions you guys have, feel free to bring them up. But let's see. So we did get the capital improvement plan, a draft of it to council, beginning of March or beginning of April here. So just had a couple weeks out. It's here on our website. The full plan, of course, is quite a lot of documentation down here. Pretty familiar if anybody was looking at it last year, familiar format. We do have a slightly different map now. So if anybody gets a chance to kind of play around with this, we had our friends at the GIS Consortium pull together some pretty nice features here. Let's see, I can pull some toggles here. So you can kind of see what's in the planning phase, what might be in construction for fiscal year 25. Here's reloading. So give you kind of a sense of some things. So of course you'll see some like EQL projects. You may remember some of these locations popping up there. But yeah, so that's a good one. I encourage if anybody gets a chance to take a look, give us feedback. We'll be going back to council with a resolution to adopt on May 6th for committee of the whole for approval the week after. Now I'm probably not going to have, I'm going to have, this one I might not be so successful with, but let's see. Sometimes the straight Google search doesn't work so well. So here we've got, okay, here we got it. So our Lincoln Avenue corridor study, moving into another round of public involvement. Going to be presenting some concepts about what? No. Why is that a Facebook link? That's not a Facebook link. Let's do a copy paste. There we go. Yeah, so it's a great website to go check out. And I think it's in current proposed interventions. We've got some ideas floating around here that I think you guys might find very interesting. Different scenarios of bike lanes along the corridor. And you'll notice that there's some ideas about reducing the number of conflict points along the segment by either making some of these local streets cul-de-sacs or looking at right-in, right-out only, and then introducing some relatively evenly spaced mid-block crossings with rapid flashing beacons and so forth. So, I think there's some really cool ideas we're exploring here. Definitely want to get public input on this. There'll be some, I think this will be more of a change for people who, probably taking these side streets, not just passing through, but, some good opportunities here for the focus of this study, which is really the vulnerable road users. We recognize we're not increasing traffic volume through this area. That's not the objective of this study or these improvements. But so yeah, there will be I want to say there's going to be a public meeting coming up. Let's see, phase 2. You got that? Okay, April 23rd. Thanks. So coming up in not too long. So encourage anybody want to, send in comments, go to the public meeting. It'd be great.
Definitely worth going to the public meeting if you can, instead of just sending in, to see what other people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay to provide a little bit of feedback now or in this meeting? Or
Yeah, by all means.
I had a couple of things. Let's see, the first one was one of the main issues for me on crossing Lincoln Avenue as a cyclist is at Iowa, the intersection with Iowa, which is, I think, a common place for cyclists to cross when they're coming from Urbana going to campus.
Okay.
And as it is currently, there's nothing really special about it for cyclists aside from 2 signs which are posted to warn drivers that cyclists might be crossing. So essentially what you have to do is just wait for the traffic to clear and then try and cross. And sometimes that's possible, and sometimes that feels safe, and sometimes it doesn't. And so that's one thing that I think we could try and improve on, and that I didn't see yet in any of the proposal or the proposed improvements. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. And then the other,
I was going to say, the
okay.
cool thing about that Iowa crossing, though, is there's a cutaway for trucks, which I'm sure you've noticed. And if,
to go
yeah,
in on the sidewalk.
and when you
yeah.
as a cyclist, if you take that and the cars don't see that you're doing it, it's
Yeah.
a little scary and dangerous. And you weren't on BPAC when this happened, but someone presented, he was driving his car down that street, and only his daughter was the person who saved him from running over 3 people because of there was a truck blocking his view. So it's a really dangerous, that is a very dangerous intersection and could definitely use some improvements.
And so on that note, my other comment was I really like the idea of, I think access control was maybe the term being used. So blocking access for cars from some of these side streets coming onto Lincoln Avenue or even leaving Lincoln Avenue. But I was curious, especially for Iowa, because it's so important for bicyclists, would it be possible to do that in a way that would allow them to still pass through to access Lincoln Avenue? So rather than making it a cul-de-sac in kind of the traditional sense, or even if it is a cul-de-sac, to have some sort of path so that those riding bicycles can still access that intersection, whereas drivers can't.
And Urbana has existing neighborhoods like that right now. If you go down, what street?
Sunnycrest.
Is it Sunnycrest? Yeah, and you'll cut, it looks like it's a dead end. Like it says, there's a big sign that says dead end,
Yeah.
but actually if you go to the end of it, you will see that there is a little sidewalk that will connect you to the other side, which is just absolutely delightful. Yeah, there's a couple of them, and so on one hand, because it says it's a dead end, you do not get the large vehicle traffic, but if you do know that you can actually bike or walk through
Right.
them, it's sort of magical. And people, honestly, even walkers don't know that they are actually connected and it's actually not a dead end.
And I think because Iowa is such a popular street for cyclists that it would be really greatly appreciated if we could continue to cycle on that street. And then even more so if we could reduce the traffic on that street, but then still allow cyclists to
And
pass
I
through.
think, cyclists would bike on it anyway, even if they were told not to.
I guess
So
it depends on
I
how
don't-
high the curb is. But yeah.
It's called the pathway of desire, and it will happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. I really enjoyed this, and yeah, there's so many great ideas here. So yeah, thanks for this.
Oh, it's great to hear.
Is there a thought as to what grant would pay for this, or what funding source? The work, I mean.
Sure. Yeah. So the challenge that we have with, say, some of our big projects that we've got, like Florida Avenue, the North Lincoln Avenue project, this project, is that in the absence of getting a larger outside grant, we're our kind of backup plan is just taking a longer approach just based on our cash flow, like when these could get done. And we present it that way in this year's CIP of being like, well, this kind of sucks, but like, with Florida Avenue, if you don't get a big grant, we could build it in 4 years. That's the cash flow that would break that up. We could get, say, every 3 to 4 years, Urbana can expect to get $2 to $3 million from CUOTS. It's kind of it's our turn. Everybody kind of takes their turn getting the money, and so it could be doing one of the Lincoln Avenue projects. 3 or 4 years could do this project. So it's. That's the advantage of going for those grants, is it can get things done, sooner. But yeah, this one is probably looking at construction around FY30, I think, with the current cash flow we got. But so we'll see if we can make that happen sooner. And I would say too, I mean, that a lot of that's of course driven by resurfacing the pavement. Now, some of these things that we're looking at here, not strictly require, pavement resurfacing to do like some of these changes. So that's part of what we may have to look at with these bigger projects. How do we break it up into smaller pieces? Maybe if we look to get the effective things done first, like the impactful things, I guess I should say. So, yep, cool. Let's see, anything else on Lincoln Avenue? All right, cool. And then for I know Audrey was able to attend. There was a meeting last week with some representatives from the Illinois Department of Transportation, the local district out of Paris. Oh, this is Bing map, isn't it? Okay. I'll try to deal with it. I overcome my biases. That was something we're supposed to do in our annual performance evaluations. Overcome biases and work with diversity. And I'm gonna say Bing Maps is really expanding my. Oof. Okay. I guess it's not so bad. So anyway, we had a nice meeting with some folks from Paris. They're in the design phase right now for this project. We've touched on it a few times. The current plan that IDOT's looking at is doing a 10-foot desired, 8-foot minimum shared use path on the north side of University Avenue from Maple Street over to Ambucks Park. Their current proposal is to have the shared use path get to this point in front of the park, have a mid-block crossing at this widest point of the median, the grass median here, kind of do a staggered crossing to where it's not like a straight line. People have to step around, and have rapid flashing beacons for both sides, 2 separate circuits there. And the idea that this would then kind of line up with a future Kickapoo Rail Trail spur off of this way. And there's a lot of good discussion about that. They got input from MTD, from Park District, really, really good, like kind of critical feedback from both organizations. I think the attitude was like, well, it's great you're doing some things. They probably would have liked to have seen some things differently. Gave IDOT their feedback. From my part, I know what I asked for was that I think IDOT was just looking at the bike master plan. It was like, well, let's get a path to the park, and so then the park district could do like a interior road kind of bike path to get connections up to, say, Butso up here, which gets connection to the population, up in this corner here. And I cracked open the pedestrian master plan. I was like, well, it'd be really great, guys, if you could just at least give us a sidewalk that goes all the way to Learman. They label it Butso here. It's labeled Learman in other places, but get a sidewalk over to here. I know we have a significant challenge getting across this spot here, but so IDOT's looking into that, see if it meets their warrants, meaning that they would pay for it rather than saying, that's cool idea, city, you pay for it. So we'll see how that goes. That's right. And then Audrey, Jeff Yaki, Charlie was there, and others who brought a lot of good. Cynthia was there, yes, of course. Cynthia was there too. A lot of good discussion, good suggestions brought to IDOT. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I know Audrey, you're welcome to share if you want to share your perspective on kind of how that went.
It sounded like they were really still open to taking some input and thinking about things, which I don't know when they're planning to actually start the design.
Right.
Because they mentioned April 29th, I believe, as the last date for input.
Mm-hmm. They are in design, which they've got a consultant, getting them at least to, I don't know if they're like 50% to a 50% kind of completion there. But they've got fiscal year 2027 is the planned year for construction, and so like this coming year is fiscal year 2025, starts July 1st, so a couple years away. So they got a little time.
A couple years.
Yeah, they got a little time to firm things up there.
Well, was there any discussion about speed limit step downs?
They did have a discussion about that, yes. And that was, I'd kind of characterize that as like a non-starter with their geometrics engineer who was there. We kind of had got into some more details about it, but it wasn't something they were really interested in entertaining.
It was brought up to them, and I'll be providing them with a little bit more of the references for the push from USDOT for context dependent design, where you set a target speed instead of just saying, well, this is how fast people are going, so we're going to accommodate that, instead of actually looking at the context. And there's a software tool for that was mentioned in that letter too by Crystal Lake. In their ordinance, they used it's a Fed Highways tool called US Limits 2. I know it's been used in at least 3,000 design cases that doesn't just consider the 85th percentile, which they remarked that the speed limits are fitting their 85th percentile study well, the current speed limits. So that means they've designed the road very well for that speed limit. It doesn't mean it couldn't be reduced with some redesign, especially if the road could be narrowed. And the problem specifically with narrowing to a road diet, which MTD had requested or suggested, was that there wasn't enough space, right? There's just not enough space to work with from Maple.
Yeah, and kind of in the context that they, they're constrained within their policies, IDOT is, because they're just really resurfacing the road and they're not changing the cross-section of the road. And so they're trying to work within those limitations. They're also not going, beyond this, Route 130 intersection at Casey's or Vine Street, Cunningham there. And so, yeah, like Audrey was saying, by the time for the speed limit and the taper rates that they'd get to, they'd have like a couple hundred feet of the reduced lane section before they have to start widening out again. So it's like, they call it an hourglass effect, where it's just not really a meaningful thing from their perspective.
The executive director of the Park District was there also, Tim Bartlett, and he did argue for making this a more attractive, highlighting Ambooks Park, which ironically is supposed to be an accessible park, and making this east entrance to Urbana something to be proud of. So I think overall they were very pleased to get more of context from the citizens of Urbana, and it was very kind of them.
That massive intersection at Casey's, they're putting in a roundabout, right? I swear there's an accident there every time, whenever I'm like, oh, jeez. Another one. There they are. Yeah, the Urbana police must just be like, oh, Casey's? Oh, okay. Yeah. On University Avenue? Yeah, we'll be there.
Yeah.
They have good pizza too. So
They do have good food at Casey's, I will say that. A couple other things they've got. So for anybody who kind of remembers the earlier phases of this, Bob Nelson, before his retirement, did a bike travel assessment, which led us to kind of this point of like, oh, we have bike generators. Let's do something besides just resurface this pavement. They're actually starting a new bike travel assessment. I guess any day now. I had written down, back on March 26th, I had written down in a couple of weeks they were starting it. They were wanting to meet with the bike, leaders of the bike community before doing that. And they are planning to have a public meeting later on, probably midsummer of this year as well. So.
One other interesting thing that came out is the guy from VO, I assume the local director, brought his heat maps, which are proprietary. So I don't think that he was able to share them, but they did show a lot of travel down Main Street because University is not very comfortable for cyclists. And then they were going all the way to, where is it that they were cutting up and going back to get onto
There was a lot on
University?
Maple. There was a lot on Maple.
But I mean, the ones that were
sorry.
going down Main all the way and then coming back
Oh, right.
to
They
get
were
to
they were
their
cutting across the
residences.
railroad at like
Yeah.
at maybe at Poplar, maybe, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was, you could see it, you could see the faces on the guys from IDOT who, I mean, they're not from this area, so they're crossing a railroad track, right? They were like, didn't want to say it. They were like, yeah, that's illegal. Yes, that's.
And, you know, and it's like, and honestly, like, raise your hand if you haven't done that here. Like, we've all crossed those railroad tracks trying to get desperately to something over there, not in a car.
Yeah, so overall, I was very grateful that they came over and met with the stakeholders, the bicycle community.
Cool. Only other thing I can think of, I do have our design consultant under contract, getting started on their 2 ITEP projects, our 2 ITEP designs on Florida and at Baker's Lane. Of course, with the the cool developments with the kind of like crossing at Main Street, where the property north of Main Street there at the terminus of the Baker's Lane, that's in process for the Kickapoo the Forest Preserve District to be in possession of the property they need there to have the the trail connection. So that's looking good. We'll be in coordination with the Forest Preserve District on getting connection across Main Street and so forth as well. So that's good stuff happening over there. Yeah, and I guess any questions from the commission?
So the Baker Lane is going to go from Washington to East Main?
Correct. Yes.
And it's going to go on like where the Weaver Park is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be beautiful.
There's definitely going to be a lot of careful consideration for what path exactly it takes. The end point and the starting points defined, but kind of what path it takes. We've been the Park District has a really good steering committees going on for Weaver Park kind of overall, with this trail kind of fitting nicely in with that. So we got a lot of things to balance. It's going to be a real kind of finding the right compromise of different things. We have, of course, prairie area. We have, the neighborhood, residential properties nearby, trees. We have all these things to try to balance as we find the right way to get through there. But thankfully, a pretty small footprint with the path.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thanks.
Fantastic stuff. Okay, we have no new business. Next, we're on to announcements, then future topics. Does anyone have announcements?
Well, the Prairie Cycle Club season with weekly rides starts Saturday, and then it'll be Bike Month soon, and there's all kinds of things happening then.
Okay, look for that. When did Prairie Cycle Club's rides are starting Saturday? And the easy one leaves from Meadowbrook.
Yeah, Meadowbrook
Park on Race.
And it's 9 o'clock through till June. Although then the next week will be the marathon, and we don't do anything that day.
Okay.
We do the marathon.
I know I just spent a lot of time talking, but I do have one quick announcement. We have some good things happening over in engineering. I know within the last year we were able to hire a couple of civil engineers, and Riley Jones has been joining us tonight. Riley's one of our civil engineers that joined us back in September, and so really glad to have him. Riley's been helping me a lot with a variety of things, but in particular kind of fielding the various traffic concerns we get. Riley's been getting involved with the Safe Routes to School committee, and so just thanks Riley for being here. And we have another hire coming up. We're hiring a second assistant city engineer as well, so got some good stuff happening in our division. So.
Welcome. And I would mention Safe Routes to School is another thing that can be funded on the Safe Streets for All, which was a surprise to me. I don't think they mentioned that last year.
I was going to say the Christie Clinic, Illinois race weekend is coming up, April 25 through 27. They have more people have registered. They're back up on their registrations for the half marathon, and this is the first time they're doing the marathon in a couple years, so it's pretty exciting. It's a very lovely, wonderful event if you've never done it. Everyone's welcomed, and there's like a youth run, there's a 5K, there's a 10K, there's a relay. They're always looking for volunteers, and it's really simple to volunteer, and they're really happy to have you. A lot of ways, like they need to have a certain number of volunteers to even get the permits to close the streets to do this event. So I really would encourage anybody, if you want to volunteer. I am definitely volunteering, and I'm also going to be doing the half marathon. So it's a great event. And it's really exciting, and the cyclists are out there, and they're lovely, and they keep the route safe. So I think that's all I've got on the half marathon, but it's very fun. I highly recommend it.
Even just going out and watching it and having a good time.
Yeah, I know people who are just going to register to walk it. There's no reason why you can't just register and walk in back and have fun with all the people in back who are frankly having a little bit of a party at the back end of the half marathon.
Yeah, I've got an announcement. So I've been working with someone at the CU Urbanism Group. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. We're starting a book club. So if anyone is interested in joining the book club, we provisionally set the first meeting for May 5th. That's a Sunday at 2 p.m. at Cafe & Co., the cafe here in downtown Urbana. That's May 5th at 2 p.m. And that should be announced through their newsletter as well, which should come at the beginning of next month. We don't have a book set yet, so you don't have to read anything. The first meeting will just be to choose a book and maybe decide on a cadence for future meetings. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you there.
Okay, so I have another announcement. So as the summer is coming, the MTD is preparing for the upcoming 2024 new school year. So the public outreach and public meeting will be happening in May. So yeah, keep an eye on all the social media and our press release about the dates, locations, and be there to meet us with your questions, comments about our service. Thank you.
And I'd just like to mention that input is welcome on that letter, too, if anybody wants to issue any suggestions or corrections. We can't discuss it, but you can send in input. Okay.
And I'll just add, as far as the marathon goes, PACE is going to have a deaf team and a low vision / blind team walking in the 5K.
Which is Friday night. Yeah. Future top. Future topics. Anyone wish to suggest a future topic?
I would like us to have at least one conversation this spring with an outreach rep from the fire department to see if we can do anything plausible and constructive to share, perceptions with the public about safety issues with regard to bikes and lithium-ion batteries. I circulated a couple of news items to the group by email a couple of weeks ago. They're coming. They're here. I can guarantee you, London, Antwerp, Ghent, and Brussels, cities I was in a couple of weeks ago, the e-scooters and e-bikes are everywhere. Any accommodation to a new technology, there's casualties. There's collateral damage. There always is. what we can do to mitigate that, or at least to give a, useful heads up to the public about good ways to handle these things.
I wonder if the fire department is in discussion with the university on this topic.
We've had conversations in the past. I haven't had, there hasn't been a new conversation in but there is an objective that we want to create like a task force to tackle this by next year or something. Create a task force, not the, then that task force will come up with a plan as to how to implement. One of the things that we have, again, it's nothing official, some suggestions that we have heard or discussed within like student groups is coming up with a standard for lithium ion batteries, the UL standard batteries that's there. Not all batteries are they have that standard.
Okay.
Yeah, they have that certification, but what we are thinking of, there have been, again, some discussions, nothing official, that maybe should consider making it a policy that only bicycles or scooters, personal use only, that have UL certified batteries can be allowed on campus. But it's difficult to determine which bicycle or scooter has that because there is no indication or indicator on the vehicle itself. So there are challenges there. We are trying to figure out some solutions. But let's see.
And people who use like assisted mobility devices that run on batteries, those I assume.
They should be certified.
Yeah. So it's, in some ways, I think it's interesting because it doesn't seem like it's a new problem because people have been using assisted mobility devices for a very long time that are battery operated.
Yes, but the scooter and the bike industry, they don't follow the standard. So unless they follow it, like it's going, yeah, there's still going to be that problem.
Bruce, were you interested in having a representative from the fire department attend the meeting, or were you interested in having like questions sent to the fire department for them to respond back to the group, or?
Drop by for a 15-minute discussion.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine they're involved in networks about fire safety, and probably
Mm-hmm.
picking up a lot of ideas that, that we're not privy to. The crux of our worry, I think yours and mine, is one of these things blowing up at 2 o'clock in the morning in FAR.
Yeah.
Or a high-rise on Green Street, or one of the garden apartments someplace. The fire rate caused by these in New York and London and places like that is severe. Those are very different cities, very different kinds of cultures and behaviors. But I spent my life with 18 to 20 students. I don't want to lose one because somebody decides to get experimental or cute with a battery in the wrong place.
I think knowledge is our best weapon.
Well, I'll reach out to the fire department to invite them to our next meeting. Which, somebody pointed out to me, I put the wrong day in May on the calendar. I did not put the third Tuesday on the calendar that everybody approved.
But it is 4 weeks, I believe, from this date.
I got the date wrong, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think it's not the third Tuesday. So I'll have to do some OMA juggling.
14th is the second Tuesday.
It's right. I'll have to do some OMA juggling as we get there. It will be the 21st, and I'll be sure it'll be a special meeting because I'm a moron. So sorry about that. But I will. I'll reach out to. What's that? It'll be another special meeting.
I'm like, why are these all special?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. If there's no other topics, then This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.